Ryan had everything a person could dream of. Born into one of the wealthiest families in the city, he never knew what it meant to want something and not get it. His father owned a massive real estate company, and his mother came from old money. Together they had built an empire, and Ryan was their only son. Their pride and joy, or at least that's what they told themselves. From the moment Ryan could walk, he was surrounded by luxury. Designer baby clothes, the most expensive toys, private tutors, and later cars that cost more than most people's houses. His childhood bedroom looked like a showroom, filled with everything a kid could want. Video game systems he never played, sports equipment he never used, shelves full of things that were bought just because he pointed at them. But here's the thing about getting everything you want. When you never hear the word no, you forget that other people have feelings. You forget that respect is something you earn, not something you're entitled to just because your last name is on a building downtown. Ryan's parents loved him deeply. They really did, but they made a mistake that so many wealthy parents make. They thought that giving him things would make him happy. They thought that saying yes to everything would make them good parents. His father was rarely home, always busy with business deals and meetings. His mother tried to fill that gap with gifts and money. Every time Ryan threw a tantrum, they gave in. Every time he demanded something, they delivered. By the time Ryan hit his teenage years, something had gone terribly wrong. He wasn't just confident, he was arrogant. He didn't just know his worth. He thought he was worth more than everyone else. Teachers at his private school dreaded having him in class. He would interrupt, argue, and sometimes just walk out if he was bored. But nothing ever happened to him. His parents would make a phone call, write a check, and suddenly the problem disappeared. The staff at their mansion walked on eggshells around him. The chef learned to never ask what Ryan wanted for dinner, because he would change his mind 3 times and then complain about all 3 meals. The drivers knew to stay silent during rides because any small talk might set him off. The housekeepers had a system where they would text each other warnings about his moods. His younger sister Kate learned early on to just stay out of his way. She was quieter, kinder, more like their mother used to be before years of stress wore her down. Kate would hide in her room when Ryan was on one of his rampages, headphones on, pretending she couldn't hear him screaming at their parents or the staff. The worst part was how Ryan treated people in public. Waiters, store clerks, valet drivers, anyone in a service position. He saw them as beneath him, as people who existed only to make his life easier. If his coffee wasn't exactly right, he would berate the barista. If someone didn't move fast enough, he would snap his fingers at them like they were dogs. And his parents? They would apologize quietly, tip extra, and hope everyone would forget. They made excuses, so many excuses. He's young, he'll grow out of it. He's under a lot of pressure. He's just going through a phase. But Ryan wasn't going through a phase. He was becoming exactly what they had created, a monster wrapped in expensive clothes, driving a car that cost more than some people earn in 5 years. By 23, Ryan had never held a real job. He had a title at his father's company, sure, vice president of something or other. But he rarely showed up, and when he did, he spent most of the time on his phone or leaving early for lunch that turned into the rest of the day. His father kept hoping that responsibility would change him, that maturity would somehow magically appear. It never did. Ryan's friends, if you could call them that, were just like him, rich kids with nothing to do and no one to tell them no. They spent their nights at exclusive clubs, their days sleeping off hangovers, their parents' money flowing like water. They competed over who had the newest phone, the fastest car, the most expensive watch. It was a game to them. Life was a game where they had all the cheat codes. But underneath all that confidence, all that arrogance, there was something else, an emptiness that Ryan couldn't quite name. He filled it with more stuff, more parties, more of everything, but nothing ever felt like enough. He was angry all the time, frustrated with everyone, and he didn't even know why. The world kept giving him everything, so why did he still feel like something was missing? His mother saw it sometimes in quiet moments. The little boy she used to read stories to, before the money changed everything, before they stopped saying no, before he learned that throwing a fit got him what he wanted. She missed that little boy, but she didn't know how to find him anymore. She didn't know that the little boy was buried under years of bad decisions, hers and his father's, under mountains of gifts that were meant to replace time and attention. Now, As Ryan's 23rd birthday came and went with another expensive party that he barely remembered, his parents were planning something else. His mother's 50th birthday was coming up and she wanted something simple. Just a family dinner at a nice restaurant. No big party, no hundreds of guests, just the four of them together. She missed her family. Even though they all lived in the same house, she missed feeling like they were actually connected to each other. His father booked a table at the most exclusive restaurant in the city. The Azure Room was the kind of place where reservations had to be made months in advance, where the cheapest bottle of wine cost more than most people's car payments. He thought maybe, just maybe, if they went somewhere special enough, Ryan would behave. He thought maybe his son would show his mother some kindness on her birthday. But Ryan didn't care about his mother's birthday. He didn't care about much of anything except himself. When his father reminded him about the dinner, he barely looked up from his phone. When his mother asked what time he'd be ready, he just shrugged. In his mind, it was just another boring family obligation, another evening wasted when he could be out with his friends. Nobody in the family knew it yet, but that dinner was going to change everything. Sometimes life has a way of teaching us lessons when we least expect it. Sometimes those lessons come from the people we least expect. And sometimes, just sometimes, those lessons come exactly when we need them most, even if we don't know it yet. Saturday evening arrived with clear skies and a gentle breeze. It was the perfect evening for a celebration, or at least it should have been. Ryan's mother had been looking forward to this dinner for weeks. She had her hair done at her favorite salon, wore a beautiful dress she had been saving for a special occasion, and actually felt excited for the first time in months. His father drove them to the restaurant in the family car, a luxury sedan that purred quietly through the evening traffic. Kate sat in the back, checking her phone nervously. She knew her brother was coming separately, and she had that familiar knot in her stomach that always appeared when the family got together. She loved her mother and wanted this night to be perfect for her. But she also knew Ryan. And knowing Ryan meant knowing that things rarely went smoothly. The Azure Room was everything you'd expect from a five-star restaurant. Soft lighting, elegant table settings, waiters moving silently between tables like dancers. The kind of place where people whispered instead of talked, where every detail was perfect. The host recognized the family name immediately and led them to one of the best tables in the house, near a large window overlooking the city lights. Ryan's mother sat down with a genuine smile. For a moment, she let herself hope that tonight would be different, that her son would show up on time, that he would put his phone away, that maybe they could have one nice evening together as a family, just one evening where they felt like a real family again, not just four people who happened to live in the same house. They waited. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. The waiter came by twice to ask if they wanted to order drinks, and each time Ryan's father said they were waiting for one more person. Kate could see the disappointment creeping into her mother's face, the way her smile got a little smaller, the way she kept glancing at the door. Finally, after 30 minutes, they heard it. The roar of an engine outside, way too loud for this quiet street. Ryan's new sports car, bright red and obnoxiously expensive, pulled up right in front of the restaurant's entrance. Not in the parking area where you're supposed to park, but right there on the street, blocking part of the sidewalk. The valet rushed over, probably to tell him he couldn't park there. But Ryan just tossed him the keys and walked away. He strolled into the restaurant like he owned the place, wearing designer clothes that probably cost more than the waiter's monthly salary. His eyes were glued to his phone, his thumbs moving rapidly across the screen. He didn't look up when the host greeted him. He didn't look up when he reached the table. He just pulled out his chair, sat down and kept typing. His mother's face lit up anyway. "Ryan, honey, I'm so glad you made it," she said softly, reaching across the table like she wanted to touch his hand but didn't quite dare. Ryan glanced up for half a second, gave a little nod and went right back to his phone. His father cleared his throat, that warning sound that meant behave yourself, but Ryan ignored it. The waiter appeared with menus and everyone except Ryan took one. He was too busy with whatever was on his screen. They ordered drinks. Kate got water. Their parents ordered wine, and Ryan, without looking up, demanded the most expensive scotch they had. The waiter hesitated, waiting to see if Ryan would say please or thank you. He didn't. The waiter left quietly. Dinner started badly and got worse. Ryan's mother tried to make conversation, talking about her week, about a charity event she had attended, about Kate's college plans. Kate tried to help, adding details, asking questions, anything to fill the awkward silence. But Ryan said nothing. He just sat there scrolling, typing, occasionally smirking at something on his screen. Finally, his mother had enough. "Ryan, sweetheart, could you please put your phone away? Just for tonight? It's my birthday, and I'd really like to spend time with you." Her voice was gentle, pleading even, not demanding, just asking. The kind of request that any decent person would honor without thinking twice. Ryan looked up and his expression was cold. "Are you serious right now? I'm dealing with something important. Unlike some people, I actually have a life." The words came out sharp, cutting. Several people at nearby tables glanced over. His mother's face fell. "I just thought we could talk. As a family. I hardly ever see you anymore." "Yeah, well, maybe that's because you're always so needy," Ryan snapped back, louder now. "Always wanting attention. Always trying to make everything about you. It's exhausting." The restaurant seemed to get quieter. Even the background music felt like it faded away. Kate stared at her plate, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. Her father leaned forward, his voice low and tight with controlled anger. "That's enough, Ryan. You don't speak to your mother like that." Ryan turned on him instantly. "Oh, here we go. The big businessman wants to tell me how to act. That's rich, coming from someone who hasn't had a new idea in a decade. Your company is barely staying afloat and everyone knows it. You're washed up." You could hear a pin drop. Other diners weren't even pretending not to listen anymore. They were watching openly now, shocked at what they were witnessing. A young man tearing apart his own family in public on his mother's birthday, without a shred of shame or remorse. The food arrived, but nobody felt like eating. Ryan's mother had tears in her eyes, trying desperately not to let them fall. Kate wanted to disappear. Their father sat rigid, his jaw clenched so tight it looked painful. And Ryan just kept finding things to complain about. The steak wasn't cooked right. Too much salt. Not enough salt. The wine list was mediocre. The music was annoying. On, each complaint louder than the last, each one designed to hurt, to embarrass, to assert dominance. This was who Ryan had become. Someone who found power in making others feel small, especially his own family. A young waiter, probably new, approached the table nervously. "Excuse me, sir, is everything all right with your meal? I can have the chef prepare something else if you'd like." Ryan exploded. "Is everything all right? Are you kidding me? Look at this plate. Does this look right to you? This is supposed to be a 5-star restaurant and you're serving garbage. What kind of place are you running here?" The waiter's face went pale. "I'm very sorry, sir. Let me get the manager." "Yeah, you better get the manager. And while you're at it, maybe learn how to do your job properly. How hard is it to bring out a decent meal? They'll hire anyone these days, won't they?" The cruelty in his voice was shocking. This wasn't just complaining. This was deliberate humiliation. The young waiter hurried away, his hands shaking. Kate felt sick. Her mother was openly crying now, soft tears rolling down her cheeks. Her birthday completely ruined. Ryan's father tried one more time. "Son, please. That's enough. Let's just finish dinner and go home." But Ryan was past listening. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. As he stood, his arm knocked over a full glass of water. It crashed to the floor, ice and water spreading across the expensive carpet. He didn't even look at it. "I'm done here," he announced to the entire restaurant. "This place is a joke, this dinner is a joke, and honestly, this whole family is a joke." His mother reached out, her hand trembling. "Ryan, please don't go. Please, just sit down. It's my birthday, please." Her voice broke on that last word. Kate had never heard her mother sound so desperate, so broken. But Ryan just shook off her hand when she tried to touch his arm. "This is exactly why I can't stand being around you people," he said, his voice dripping with disgust. "You're all so needy, so pathetic, always wanting something from me. I've got better things to do than sit here and pretend I care about this." And with that, he turned toward the exit, leaving his family sitting there in shocked silence, his mother crying, his sister's head bowed in shame, his father looking older than he ever had before. The other diners looked away, embarrassed for the family, angry at the son, uncomfortable witnessing such cruelty. Ryan headed for the door, his expensive shoes clicking on the marble floor, his phone already back in his hand. He thought he was free, that he'd made his point, that he could just leave and go back to his life. He thought the night was over. He had no idea it was just beginning. Ryan stormed toward the exit, still looking at his phone, texting someone about how boring his evening had been. He was maybe 10 steps from the door when he noticed someone standing in his path. Not moving, not stepping aside, just standing there like a wall. The security guard was tall, probably in his early 60s, with silver hair cut military short. He wore the restaurant's uniform, a simple dark suit that looked well-worn but clean. His name tag read James, but it wasn't his appearance that made Ryan pause. It was his eyes. They were kind, but they had seen things. Hard things. The kind of eyes that belonged to someone who had lived through real struggles, not the manufactured drama of Ryan's world. Ryan tried to step around him, but James shifted slightly, still blocking his path. Not aggressively, not threateningly, just firmly, like a father might stand when his child is about to make a terrible mistake. "Excuse me," Ryan said, his tone sharp with irritation. "You're in my way." "I know," James replied quietly. His voice was calm, measured, the kind of voice that doesn't need to be loud to carry weight. "I think you need to stop for a moment, son." "Son?" That word hit differently when James said it. Not condescending, not mocking, but genuine. The way a real father might speak to a child who's lost their way. Ryan's face flushed red. "Are you kidding me? Do you know who I am?" "Move now." James didn't move. He just stood there, his hands relaxed at his sides, no tension in his body. He wasn't trying to intimidate Ryan. He was just present, fully present, in a way that Ryan found deeply uncomfortable. "I know exactly who you are," James said, his voice still quiet but somehow filling the space around them. "You're a young man who just destroyed his mother's birthday. You're someone who treats people like they're nothing. You're a person who has everything but appreciates nothing." The restaurant had gone completely silent. Every conversation had stopped. Every fork was frozen halfway to every mouth. Even the kitchen seemed to have gone quiet. Everyone was watching this moment unfold. Ryan felt his anger rising, that familiar feeling when someone dared to challenge him. "You have no right to talk to me like that. You're just a security guard. You're nobody. Get out of my way before I have you fired." James smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was sad. The kind of smile someone wears when they see history repeating itself. When they see someone making mistakes that can't be unmade. "You're right," James said. "I am just a security guard. Been doing this job for 5 years now. Before that, I was in the military for 25 years. Served my country. Saw things that most people only see in nightmares. But you know what? None of that matters right now. What matters is what I'm about to tell you." Ryan tried to interrupt, but something in James's expression stopped him. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the fact that nobody had ever really stood up to him like this before. Not without backing down when he pushed back. "I had a son," James began, and his voice changed slightly, still steady, but with an undercurrent of something deeper. Pain, maybe, or loss that time had softened but never erased. "His name was David, good kid. Better than good, actually. He was kind, the kind of person who helped old ladies cross the street without being asked. The kind who called me every Sunday no matter what. Never missed his mother's birthday. Never missed any family dinner." Ryan shifted uncomfortably. Other people in the restaurant were leaning forward now, drawn into James's story despite themselves. "David wasn't perfect," James continued. "He had his flaws like anyone. But he understood something that some people never learn. He understood that family is a gift. That time with the people who love you is precious. That respect isn't about money or status. It's about recognizing the humanity in everyone around you." James paused, and in that pause you could feel the weight of what was coming. When David was 24 years old, he enlisted in the military, wanted to serve, wanted to make a difference. I was proud of him, terrified for him, but proud. He did 2 tours overseas, and then one day, I got a visit from 2 officers in dress uniforms. You know what that means when they show up at your door? You know before they even speak. The restaurant felt like it had stopped breathing. Ryan's mother had turned in her seat to listen, tears still on her cheeks. Kate was watching with wide eyes. Even Ryan's father, who had been staring at his plate, had looked up. "David was killed in action," James said simply. "Died protecting his brothers in arms. He was 24 years old. 24. He'll never turn 25. He'll never get married. He'll never have kids. He'll never call his mother on Sunday again. And my wife and I will never have another dinner with him. Never hear him laugh. Never hear him complain about the little things that don't really matter. James took a step closer to Ryan, and now his eyes weren't just kind. They were piercing, seeing right through all of Ryan's expensive clothes and attitude to the scared, empty person underneath. "You want to know what I would give to have one more meal with my son?" James asked, his voice barely above a whisper but somehow louder than a shout. "Everything. Every single thing I own. Every dollar I've ever earned or ever will earn. Every remaining day of my life. I would trade it all for just one more hour sitting across from David at a dinner table. Just one more chance to hear about his day. One more chance to tell him I love him." Ryan felt something crack inside his chest. Something that had been frozen for years was starting to thaw, and it hurt. "And here you are," James continued, his words landing like hammer blows. "You have your mother right there, alive, healthy, wanting nothing more than to spend an evening with you. You have a father who loves you, a sister who looks up to you, or at least she used to. You have everything I lost and can never get back. And what do you do with it? You throw it away. You treat them like garbage. You act like their love is a burden instead of the blessing it is." People at nearby tables were crying now, not just Ryan's mother but other mothers, other fathers. People who understood exactly what James was saying because they had felt that love, that loss, or both. "I watch people every day in this restaurant," James said. "Families having dinner together. Most of them don't even realize how lucky they are. They're on their phones, distracted, taking it all for granted. But you, son, you're not just taking it for granted. You're actively destroying it. You're hurting the people who love you most, and for what? To feel powerful? To prove you don't need anyone?" James's voice softened even more, and somehow that made his words hit even harder. "Let me tell you something that took me too long to learn. None of us are promised tomorrow. Not you, not your mother, not anyone. Life can change in a heartbeat. One phone call, one accident, one diagnosis, and everything you took for granted is gone. And when that happens, when you're sitting alone wishing you could go back, all the money in the world won't buy you another chance. All the power you think you have won't bring back the time you wasted. All the pride you carry won't warm you when you're cold and alone." The security guard placed a gentle hand on Ryan's shoulder. Ryan didn't shake it off this time. He couldn't. He felt rooted to the spot like his expensive shoes had become lead weights. "Your mother is in there crying on her birthday," James said, and now his voice carried a father's disappointment. "Not because you didn't bring her a gift. Not because you were late. She's crying because her son, her baby that she raised and loved and sacrificed for, just told her she means nothing to him. She's crying because the boy she used to read bedtime stories to has become someone she doesn't recognize, someone who finds joy in hurting others, someone who mistakes cruelty for strength." Ryan felt hot tears starting to form in his eyes. When was the last time he had cried? He couldn't remember. Crying was for weak people, he had told himself. Crying was for people who couldn't handle their problems. But standing here, listening to this security guard talk about his lost son, Ryan felt something breaking open inside him. "I'm not telling you this to make you feel bad," James said. "I'm telling you this because somebody needs to. Because in about 30 seconds you're going to walk out that door, and you have a choice. You can keep going. Keep being this person. Keep pushing away everyone who loves you until one day you're alone and wondering how you got there. Or you can turn around. You can walk back to that table. You can apologize to your mother and mean it. You can choose to be better." James dropped his hand from Ryan's shoulder and stepped aside, clearing the path to the door. "The choice is yours, son," he said quietly. "But choose wisely, because someday you'll want that time back. You'll want one more dinner with your family. And I'm here to tell you, from someone who knows, that someday might come sooner than you think. Don't wait until it's too late to realize what you had." The restaurant waited. Ryan stood frozen between the door and his family's table, between who he had been and who he might become. And for the first time in his life, Ryan truly understood that he was standing at a crossroads and the next step he took would determine everything. Ryan stood there in the doorway, James's hand no longer on his shoulder but the weight of his words pressing down like a physical thing. The restaurant remained silent, everyone frozen in this moment, waiting to see what would happen next. It felt like the whole world had stopped spinning just to watch this spoiled young man make a choice. For the first time in years, Ryan actually saw himself clearly. Not the image he presented to the world, not the confident, powerful person he pretended to be, but the truth. And the truth was ugly. He saw himself through his mother's eyes, watching her son transform from a sweet child into someone cruel. He saw himself through his sister's eyes, someone to fear and avoid. He saw himself through his father's eyes, a disappointment wrapped in expensive clothes. And he saw himself through James's eyes, a boy with everything who had learned to value nothing. The tears that had been forming in his eyes began to fall. At first just one, then another, then they came faster. Ryan's legs felt weak, like they might give out any second. His hands were shaking. He looked at the door, at his escape route, at the easy way out. He could leave right now. Get in his fancy car, drive away, pretend this never happened. Go back to his life of parties and meaningless days, of hurting people and calling it strength. But something James had said kept echoing in his mind. Someday you'll want that time back. Ryan thought about his mother, really thought about her for the first time in years. He remembered being 6 years old, sick with the flu, and how she had stayed up all night with him, reading stories and bringing him water and telling him everything would be okay. He remembered how she used to make his favorite breakfast on the first day of school, even though she had 100 other things to do. He remembered the look on her face when he graduated high school, so proud, so full of love. When had he stopped seeing that love? When had he started taking it for granted? When had her affection become something annoying instead of something precious? He thought about his father, working 70-hour weeks to build a company to provide for his family. Sure, he wasn't perfect. He had missed some soccer games, some school events, but he had been there for the important things. And more than that, he had never stopped trying, never stopped hoping that his son would become someone good, even when Ryan made it so hard to hope. And Kate, his little sister. She used to follow him around when they were kids, thought he hung the moon, looked up to him like he was a hero. When had that changed? When had she started avoiding him, started looking at him with fear instead of admiration? He had done that. He had taken her love and twisted it into something else. James watched all of this play out on Ryan's face. He had seen a lot of things in his 62 years, but watching someone truly see themselves for the first time never got old. It was always hard, always painful, but it was also always beautiful in its way, like watching something dead come back to life. Ryan's phone buzzed in his pocket. Probably his friends texting about where to meet up later, the same friends who would disappear the moment life got hard, who only knew him because of his money, who wouldn't care if he lived or died as long as someone else was buying the drinks. Those friends, and then there was his family. Imperfect, complicated, sometimes frustrating, but real. Real in a way nothing else in his life was. His mother who would forgive him anything. His father who kept hoping for better. His sister who still had a tiny spark of that old admiration buried somewhere deep, waiting for him to become someone worth admiring again. "I'm sorry," Ryan whispered. Not to James, just to the air, to himself, to the universe. "I'm sorry about your son." "I'm so sorry," James nodded slowly. "I know you are, son, but I'm not the one who needs to hear it." Ryan turned around and it felt like the hardest thing he had ever done. Turning away from that door, from his escape, from the easy path. Turning back toward his family, toward accountability, toward becoming better. His legs felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds as he took the first step. The walk back to that table felt like it took forever. Every eye in the restaurant was on him. He could feel their judgment, their curiosity, their hope. Each step felt heavier than the last. His vision was blurred with tears. His throat felt tight like he couldn't breathe. When he reached the table, he saw his mother's face. She had stopped crying, but her eyes were red and swollen. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by his cruelty. His father sat rigid, prepared for more disappointment. Kate was staring at the table, still unable to look at anyone. Ryan didn't sit down. Instead, he did something he hadn't done in years. Something he had thought was beneath him. Something for weak people who needed to beg forgiveness. He got down on his knees beside his mother's chair. The restaurant gasped. A few people pulled out their phones, but others quickly shushed them. This wasn't a moment for social media. This was sacred somehow, private even in this public space. "Mom," Ryan said, and his voice broke on that word. He reached for her hand and she let him take it, though her fingers were trembling. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And then he broke, completely, utterly broke. All the walls he had built up over the years, all the anger and arrogance and false confidence. It all came crashing down at once. He sobbed like a child, like the little boy he used to be before everything went wrong. His whole body shook with the force of it. His mother's hands moved to his head, her fingers running through his hair the way she used to when he was small. She was crying again too, but different tears this time. Not tears of hurt, but tears of hope, of relief, of a mother seeing her child come back from somewhere far away. "I've been awful," Ryan said through his tears. "Not just tonight. For years, I've been horrible to you, to Dad, to Kate, to everyone. I treated you like you didn't matter. Like your feelings didn't matter. Like your love was something I could just throw away." He looked up at his mother's face, and what he saw there broke him even more. Forgiveness. After everything he had done, after all the hurt he had caused, she was already forgiving him. That's what mothers do, he realized. They love you even when you don't deserve it, especially when you don't deserve it. "I don't know when I became this person," Ryan continued, the words tumbling out now. Years of them backed up and finally finding release. "I don't know when I started thinking I was better than everyone else. When I started measuring everything by price tags and treating people like they were nothing. But I hate who I've become. I hate it, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for ruining your birthday. For ruining so many things." His father reached over and placed his hand on Ryan's shoulder. Strong, steady, still there after everything. Still his father, still trying, still hoping. "I'm sorry, Dad," Ryan said, turning to him. "For saying those things. For being disrespectful. For wasting all the chances you've given me. For acting like your hard work didn't matter. It matters. You matter." Then he looked at Kate, his little sister who had been so quiet through all of this. "Kate, I'm sorry for being the worst brother ever. For making you afraid in your own home. For not being someone you could look up to. I want to be better. I want to be the brother you deserve." Kate's face crumpled and she started crying too. She slid out of her chair and hugged him. Really hugged him for the first time in years. "I miss my brother," she whispered. "I miss the Ryan who used to play games with me and make me laugh. I want him back." "I want him back too," Ryan said, holding his sister tight. "I'm going to try. I'm really going to try." The family held each other there in the middle of the restaurant, all four of them crying, all four of them broken in different ways but together. Other diners were crying too, affected by this raw display of humanity, this moment of real transformation happening right in front of them. James stood by the door, watching. His eyes were wet, but he was smiling. A real smile this time, not a sad one. He thought about David, about how proud his son would be to know that his death, his sacrifice, had helped save a family, that his memory had reached across the years and touched someone who needed it. After a long moment, Ryan stood up, helped his mother to her feet, and did something else he hadn't done in years. He hugged her. Really hugged her. Not the quick, obligatory hugs he sometimes gave at holidays, but a real embrace. The kind that says, "I love you and I'm sorry and thank you for never giving up on me all at once." "Happy birthday, Mom," he whispered. "I love you. I really do. I'm sorry I forgot how to show it." "I love you too, sweetheart," she said, holding him tight. "I never stopped. I never will." Ryan wiped his eyes and looked at his family. "Can we start over? Can we have dinner together for real this time? I'll put my phone away. I'll actually be here present with you guys, the way I should have been all along." They sat back down, all of them, and this time it was different. The waiter approached nervously, expecting more problems, but Ryan stopped him. "I need to apologize to you," Ryan said, his voice sincere. "And to the other waiter I was rude to. And honestly, to everyone in this restaurant who had to witness my behavior. There's no excuse for how I acted. I'm truly sorry." The waiter looked shocked but pleased. "Thank you, sir. That means a lot." They ordered new food, and this time Ryan didn't complain. He talked with his family. Really talked, really listened. He heard about his sister's plans for college. The days after that dinner were harder than Ryan expected. He woke up the next morning with swollen eyes and a headache, but also with something he hadn't felt in years: clarity. He could see his life for what it really was, and it wasn't pretty. He had spent 23 years building a version of himself that nobody actually liked, including himself. That first Sunday morning, Ryan did something unusual. He came downstairs for breakfast. Not at 1 in the afternoon, hungover and grumpy, but at 9 in the morning, showered and dressed. His mother was in the kitchen, and when she saw him, she stopped what she was doing, surprised. "Good morning, sweetheart," she said carefully, like she was afraid the wrong words might shatter whatever had changed the night before. "Good morning, Mom," Ryan replied. Then he said something he hadn't said in years. "Can I help you with breakfast?" It was such a small thing, such a simple offer, but his mother's eyes filled with tears. She nodded, not trusting her voice, and Ryan spent the next hour in the kitchen with her. They made pancakes together, and she showed him how she added vanilla extract to make them special. He burned the first batch, and instead of throwing a fit, he laughed. Actually laughed at himself. Kate came down and stopped in the doorway, staring at the scene like she couldn't quite believe it was real. Ryan at the stove, wearing an apron, talking with their mother like a normal person. When she caught his eye, Ryan smiled at her. Not a smirk, not a condescending look, but a real smile. Want to help? He asked. Kate looked at their mother, who nodded encouragingly and then joined them. The three of them made breakfast together, and when their father came down, he found his whole family in the kitchen laughing over a cooking disaster. Ryan had somehow managed to get batter on the ceiling. It was messy and imperfect and absolutely beautiful. But Ryan knew that one good morning didn't fix years of damage. He had a long road ahead of him, and he wasn't even sure where to start. That afternoon, he did something he had resisted for years. He told his parents he wanted to see a therapist. His father looked relieved. His mother hugged him tight. They had suggested therapy before many times, but Ryan had always refused, insisting there was nothing wrong with him, that other people were the problem. Admitting he needed help felt like admitting defeat. But Ryan was beginning to understand that sometimes losing is actually winning. The first therapy session was rough. Dr. Chen was a calm woman in her 50s who didn't judge, didn't criticize, just listened and asked questions. Questions that Ryan didn't want to answer because they forced him to look at himself honestly. When did you start feeling angry all the time? She asked. Ryan thought about it. Really thought. I don't know. Maybe when I realized that no matter what I did, it didn't make me happy. I kept getting more things, more expensive things, and I kept waiting to feel satisfied. But I never did. So I got angrier. What do you think you were actually looking for? That question hit hard. What had he been looking for? I think I wanted my parents to say no, Ryan admitted, surprising himself. I think I kept pushing and pushing, waiting for them to push back, to set boundaries, to show me they cared enough to stop me. But they never did. They just gave me more stuff. So I kept testing them, kept being worse, waiting for them to finally care enough to make me stop. It was a revelation that made so much sense it hurt. He had been begging for boundaries while simultaneously destroying anyone who tried to set them. He had been asking for love while making himself unlovable. He had been crying out for help in the worst possible way. Dr. Chen gave him homework. He had to apologize, really apologize, to everyone he had hurt. Not just his family, but the staff at his house, people at restaurants, anyone he could remember treating badly. The list was long. Embarrassingly long. He started with the household staff. The chef, the housekeepers, the drivers, the gardener. One by one, Ryan sat down with each of them and apologized. Some were suspicious, waiting for the catch, for the moment when this turned out to be another cruel game. Others were more forgiving than he deserved. The housekeeper, an older woman named Helen who had worked for the family for 15 years, cried when he apologized. I watched you grow up, she said. You were such a sweet little boy. I missed that boy. I'm glad he's coming back, Ryan cried too. I'm sorry it took so long. I'm sorry for all of it. The hardest apology was to the young waiter he had berated at the restaurant. Ryan had to call the Azure room and ask for his contact information. The restaurant was hesitant at first, protective of their staff, but when Ryan explained why, they agreed to pass along a message. The waiter's name was Tom, and he was working his way through college. When Ryan met him at a coffee shop to apologize, Tom was understandably nervous. But Ryan was genuine, explaining what had happened, how he had been called out by the security guard, how he was trying to change. You really hurt my feelings that night, Tom said quietly. I almost quit. I went home and cried. My roommate had to talk me into going back. I know, Ryan said, and I can't undo that. I can't take back what I said. But I want you to know that it had nothing to do with you. You were doing your job perfectly. I was the one who was broken, and I'm working on fixing that. Tom accepted his apology, and Ryan left a generous tip, though he knew money couldn't really fix what he had done. But it was something, a small gesture to show he was serious. Ryan also made changes in his daily life. He stopped going to the clubs with his so-called friends. The first time he declined an invitation, they mocked him, called him weak, said he was becoming boring. When he didn't respond to their texts, they stopped inviting him. Within a week, those friendships that he thought were solid had completely evaporated. It hurt, but it also clarified something. Those people had never been his friends. They had been his enablers. He started showing up at his father's office, actually showing up, ready to learn. His father was skeptical at first, probably waiting for Ryan to get bored and leave, but Ryan kept coming back. He sat through meetings without complaining. He asked questions. He took notes. He began to understand the business his father had built from nothing. One afternoon, his father pulled him aside. "Is this real?" he asked. "Or are you just going to quit when it gets hard?" "I don't know," Ryan admitted. "I want it to be real. I'm trying to make it real, but I understand if you don't trust me yet. I haven't given you any reason to." His father's expression softened. "The fact that you know that says something. Keep trying, son. Keep showing up. Trust is rebuilt one day at a time." Ryan went back to the Azure room 2 weeks after that fateful dinner. He wanted to see James again to thank him properly. When he walked in, James was at his usual post near the door. The security guard's face broke into a smile when he saw Ryan. "Look at you," James said, shaking his hand warmly. "You look different. Lighter somehow." "I feel different," Ryan admitted. "It's hard, though. Some days I catch myself falling back into old patterns, being impatient, being selfish. But then I remember what you said about David and I stop myself." James nodded. "That's all anyone can ask. None of us are perfect. We all mess up. The question is whether we learn from it, whether we keep trying to be better." They talked for a while, and James told Ryan more about David, about his sense of humor, his love of terrible action movies, his habit of calling at the worst possible times because he never remembered the time difference when he was overseas. Ryan listened to every word, understanding that James was giving him a gift, sharing his son's memory. "I want to do something," Ryan said, "to honor David's memory. I don't know what yet, but something meaningful. Would that be okay with you?" James's eyes got misty. "David would have liked you, you know. Once you got your head on straight. He always believed people could change. He was idealistic like that." Over the next few weeks, Ryan worked with his father and a lawyer to set up a scholarship fund. The David Morrison Memorial Scholarship would help children of military families attend college. Ryan contributed a significant amount of his own money he would have previously spent on cars or watches or bottle service at clubs. When he told James about it, the older man couldn't speak for a moment. He just pulled Ryan into a hug, holding on tight, and whispered, "Thank you. Thank you for making something good come from something painful." At home, things were slowly getting better. Family dinners became a regular thing again. Not tense obligations, but actual enjoyable meals. Ryan helped with dishes. He asked Kate about her classes and actually listened to the answers. He watched movies with his mother. He played golf with his father and didn't cheat on his score. Kate's birthday came around and Ryan made sure he was there, phone put away, fully present. He had actually gone shopping himself. No assistant, no personal shopper, and found a book series she had been wanting. Nothing flashy, nothing expensive, just something that showed he had paid attention to what she cared about. When she opened it, her face lit up. "You remembered," she said, surprised. "Of course I remembered," Ryan replied. "You mentioned it like 3 times. I'm sorry I wasn't listening before." That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Kate knocked on Ryan's door. When he opened it, she hugged him suddenly. "I got my brother back," she whispered. "I didn't think I ever would, but I did." Ryan hugged her tight, fighting back tears. 2 months into his transformation, Ryan faced his first real test. It came in the form of an invitation, delivered by text message from someone he hadn't heard from in weeks. It was Tyler, one of his old friends, the ringleader of their group, the guy who always had the best parties and the worst influence. The message was simple. "Big party this Saturday. Everyone's asking where you've been. Don't be lame. Be there." Ryan stared at his phone for a long time. Part of him missed the excitement of those nights, the feeling of being untouchable, the easy friendships that didn't require him to be better. Those old friends didn't challenge him, didn't expect him to change, didn't make him think about his choices. They just wanted him to show up and have a good time. But Ryan knew what those parties were really like. The excessive drinking, the casual cruelty disguised as jokes, the way they treated servers and anyone they deemed beneath them. He had thought that was fun once. Now it just seemed sad and empty. He showed the message to Dr. Chen during his next session. "What do you want to do?" she asked. Part of me wants to go, Ryan admitted. Not because I think I'll have fun, but because saying no feels like admitting I can't handle it. Like I'm weak. Is choosing to avoid something harmful weakness? Dr. Chen asked. Or is it wisdom? Ryan thought about that. Wisdom, I guess. But it doesn't feel wise. It feels like I'm running away. There's a difference between running away from a challenge and walking away from something that doesn't serve you anymore. You're not the same person you were 2 months ago. Do you think that version of yourself would survive a night with these people? She was right. Ryan could feel how fragile his new self was. Like a plant that had just started to grow. One night back in that environment and he might undo months of progress. It wasn't worth it. He texted back a simple reply. Thanks, but I'm good. Hope you guys have fun. The response came within seconds. Seriously? You've changed, man. And not in a good way. Whatever happened to you at that dinner, you should get over it. Ryan felt his anger rising, that old familiar heat. These people didn't care about him. They cared about having their friend who could buy bottles at clubs and had a fancy car. They didn't want him to get better. They wanted him to stay broken because that version of him was more fun for them. He blocked the number. Then he blocked all of them. It felt final, like closing a door on a part of his life. It hurt, but it also felt right. That same week, Ryan faced another challenge at work. His father had put him in charge of a small project, nothing major, just managing the renovation of one of their smaller properties. It was a test, Ryan knew, to see if he could handle responsibility. Everything was going smoothly until the contractor called with bad news. They had found some unexpected structural issues that would cost an extra $50,000 to fix. The contractor suggested they could hide the problems with cosmetic fixes, save money, and nobody would know until years down the line when it was someone else's problem. The old Ryan would have jumped at that option. Save money, look good in front of his father, and not worry about consequences that wouldn't affect him. But the new Ryan knew that was wrong. That kind of shortcut could endanger the people who would eventually live or work in that building. It was exactly the kind of selfish decision that had defined his old life. Ryan told the contractor to fix it properly, whatever it cost. Then he went to his father's office and explained the situation, including the additional cost. He waited for disappointment, for criticism, for that look that said, I knew you couldn't handle this, but his father just nodded. You made the right call. Good work, really? Ryan was surprised. I just cost the company $50,000. You made an ethical decision that protects our reputation and keeps people safe, his father replied. That's exactly what I wanted to see. I'm proud of you, son. Those 4 words, I'm proud of you, hit Ryan harder than he expected. When was the last time his father had said that? Had he ever? Ryan had spent so many years doing things to spite his father, to prove he didn't need approval. But hearing it now felt better than any compliment about his car or his clothes ever had. Around this time, Ryan started volunteering at a veterans center, one of the organizations that James had mentioned. At first, he was awkward, unsure how to talk to these men and women who had sacrificed so much. He felt like a fraud, a rich kid playing at being helpful, but the veterans didn't see him that way. They saw someone trying, someone making an effort, and they appreciated it. Ryan mostly just listened to their stories, helped with administrative tasks, and slowly learned about the challenges they faced: housing insecurity, medical issues, difficulty finding employment. Problems that all the money in Ryan's bank account could help with but couldn't solve completely. One veteran, a man named Robert who had served with James's son David, pulled Ryan aside one day. James told me about you, Robert said, about what happened at that restaurant. Ryan felt embarrassed. I was pretty terrible that night. Maybe, Robert agreed. But you're here now. That counts for something. A lot of people get called out for their behavior and never change. They just get better at hiding it or better at making excuses. You actually did something about it. I'm trying, Ryan said. Some days are harder than others. That's life, kid, Robert said with a smile. The fact that it's hard means you're doing it right. Easy things don't change you. Hard things do. Ryan found himself spending more time at the center not because he had to, but because he wanted to. These people who had so much less than him in terms of material wealth seemed so much richer in the things that actually mattered: friendship, purpose, resilience, gratitude. They didn't take things for granted because they had seen what it was like to lose everything. One afternoon, a young veteran named Chris, who was struggling with housing, Mentioned he had a job interview but didn't have appropriate clothes. Ryan's first instinct was to just buy him a suit, throw money at the problem. But Dr. Chen had been teaching him that sometimes the how matters as much as the what. Instead, Ryan offered to take Chris shopping, and they went together. Ryan helped him pick out professional clothes, but more importantly, he listened to Chris's story, offered encouragement, and treated him like a friend, not a charity case. When Chris got the job 2 weeks later, he called Ryan to share the news, excited and grateful. "You didn't have to do that," Chris said. "Help me, I mean. You don't owe me anything." "I know," Ryan replied, "but I wanted to. You deserved help and I was able to give it. That's how it should work." At home, Ryan's relationship with his family continued to improve. He and Kate had started a tradition of watching a movie together every Friday night, just the two of them. No phones, no distractions, just sibling time. She was slowly trusting him again, slowly letting her guard down. His mother had started asking his opinion on things involving him in decisions about the household or her charity work. She was treating him like an adult, not because he demanded it, but because he had earned it. And his father, who had been distant for so many years, was teaching him the business with patience Ryan didn't know he had. They would work late some evenings, then grab dinner together, talking about deals and strategies in life. Ryan was learning that his father was actually brilliant at what he did, something he had been too arrogant to see before. But the real test came when Ryan ran into some of his old friends at a gas station. Tyler was there with 2 others, leaning against an expensive car, looking bored and wealthy. When they saw Ryan, Tyler called out to him, "Hey, look who it is. Too good for us now?" Ryan could have ignored them, could have just gotten in his car and left. But something made him walk over. Maybe it was the therapist's voice in his head talking about closure, or maybe it was just the fact that running away felt cowardly. "I'm not too good for anyone," Ryan said calmly. "I'm just trying to be better. For myself and my family." Tyler laughed, a mean sound. "Better? Dude, you were fine before. You were fun. Now you're what, volunteering? Hanging out with your parents? That's pathetic." The old Ryan would have exploded, would have gotten in Tyler's face, would have said something cruel, would have felt that surge of anger that made him feel powerful. But the new Ryan just felt sad. Sad for Tyler, who didn't know any other way to be. Sad for the person he used to be, who thought this was friendship. "I'm sorry you feel that way," Ryan said. "I hope you figure things out someday. I really do." He turned to walk away, and Tyler called after him, "You're weak. You let some old security guard mess with your head." Ryan stopped and turned back. "No. He helped me see clearly for the first time in years. That's not weakness. That's growth. But you wouldn't understand that because you're still stuck where I was. And honestly, that's a pretty sad place to be." As Ryan drove away, he felt something unexpected. Not anger, not satisfaction, just peace. He had faced his old life and walked away from it without regret. That felt like progress. That night at dinner, Ryan told his family what had happened. He expected them to be worried, to ask if he was okay, to make a big deal out of it. Instead, Kate just reached over and squeezed his hand. "I'm glad you're my brother again," she said simply, and Ryan realized that was all the validation he needed. Not approval from people who didn't matter, not admiration from people who... 3 months had passed since that life-changing dinner at the Azure Room. Ryan was sitting in Dr. Chen's office for what had become his regular Thursday afternoon appointment. The space had become familiar and comfortable, a place where he could be completely honest without fear of judgment. "I've been thinking," Ryan said, settling into the chair across from her, "about how lucky I was that James spoke up that night. What if he hadn't? What if he had just let me walk out? What do you think would have happened?" Dr. Chen asked, her pen poised over her notepad. Ryan was quiet for a moment, really considering the question. "I think I would have kept getting worse. I was on a path that only led to being alone and miserable, even if I didn't realize it. James saved me from that. Him and his story about David. So what do you want to do with that?" Dr. Chen asked, knowing that when Ryan had that thoughtful look, he was working toward something. "I want to help other people," Ryan said. "People like me, people who are going down the same path." "I just don't know how," Dr. Chen smiled. "I think you'll figure it out. You've been figuring out a lot of things lately." That conversation stuck with Ryan over the next few weeks. He kept thinking about young people who were where he had been, surrounded by wealth but empty inside, treating people badly because nobody had ever really held them accountable. How could he reach them? The answer came unexpectedly during a visit to Kate's high school for a career day. Ryan had gone to talk about real estate, mostly to support his father, who was also speaking. But as he walked through the hallways, he saw them, the kids who reminded him of his younger self. Designer clothes, expensive phones, an air of entitlement that everyone could feel but nobody addressed. After his presentation, a teacher approached him. Her name was Mrs. Peterson, and she had been teaching at this private school for 20 years. "I couldn't help but notice," she said carefully, "that you spoke differently than most of our guest speakers. You talked about mistakes you made, about learning respect and humility. That's not usually what these students hear from successful people." Ryan nodded. "I learned those lessons the hard way, and way too late. I wish someone had taught me earlier." Mrs. Peterson's eyes lit up. "Would you be interested in coming back? Maybe talking to some of our students who are struggling with entitlement issues? We have quite a few, and honestly, we don't know how to reach them. Their parents have money, which means they have influence, which means there are rarely consequences for bad behavior." It was perfect, exactly what Ryan had been looking for. They arranged for him to come back the following week to speak to a small group of students who had been identified as having attitude problems. The school called it a leadership development workshop, which was a nice way of saying these kids are out of control and we need help. The day of the workshop, Ryan was nervous. What if they didn't listen? What if they laughed at him? What if he couldn't reach them the way James had reached him? He almost called to cancel 3 times that morning. But then he thought about James, about the courage it took for that security guard to step into the path of an angry, entitled young man and speak truth to him. If James could do that, Ryan could do this. There were 8 students in the room, 5 boys and 3 girls, all between 15 and 17. They sat with their arms crossed, faces skeptical, clearly forced to be there. Ryan recognized that look. It was the same look he used to wear when anyone tried to tell him anything. "So," Ryan started, pulling up a chair and sitting down with them instead of standing like a lecturer. "I'm guessing you all think this is pointless, that I'm here to give you some boring talk about being nice and respecting your elders, and you're just going to sit here until it's over so you can leave." A few of them smirked. At least he had their attention. "Here's the thing," Ryan continued. 3 months ago, I was exactly like you. Actually, I was worse. I was 23 years old and still acting like a spoiled child. I treated my family like garbage. I was cruel to service workers. I thought money made me better than other people. I thought respect was something I could buy instead of something I had to earn." One of the girls uncrossed her arms slightly. "So what changed?" she asked, her tone challenging. "I got called out," Ryan said simply, "in the most public, humiliating way possible, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me." He told them the whole story, every embarrassing detail. How he ruined his mother's birthday, how he berated a waiter, how a security guard stopped him and told him about his son who died serving their country, how he broke down crying in front of a restaurant full of people, how his whole life had been a performance of fake confidence covering up real emptiness. The room was completely silent. These kids, who probably never paid attention to anything, were leaning forward listening. "I'm not here to tell you what to do," Ryan said. "You're going to do what you want anyway. But I'm here to tell you that the path you're on, the one where you think being mean makes you strong, where you measure your worth by what you own, where you treat people like they're beneath you, that path doesn't lead anywhere good. It leads to being alone, being angry, and being the kind of person nobody actually likes, including yourself." One of the boys spoke up. "But don't people respect you more when you're tough? When you don't take garbage from anyone?" "There's a difference between being tough and being cruel," Ryan said. "Between standing up for yourself and putting others down. I thought I was being strong, but I was actually being weak. It takes no strength at all to hurt people who can't fight back. Real strength is admitting when you're wrong, apologizing when you hurt someone, and choosing to be kind even when nobody's watching." They talked for over an hour. Ryan shared more stories, answered questions, and listened to their own experiences. Many of them were dealing with absent parents, pressure to be perfect, the weight of expectations they didn't know how to handle. They were acting out because they didn't know how else to express what they were feeling. By the end of the session, something had shifted. They weren't best friends or anything, but there was understanding. Ryan gave them his phone number and told them they could text if they ever needed to talk. He figured none of them would, but that night he got a text from one of the girls. Her name was Lily. "Thanks for today. Nobody ever talks to us like real people." They just tell us we're problems. Over the next few weeks, Ryan kept going back to the school. The workshop turned into a regular thing. More students started attending, not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to. Word spread that there was this guy who actually got it, who had been where they were and found a way out. Ryan started sharing James's story in these sessions, always with James's permission. He talked about David, about service and sacrifice, about the preciousness of time with family. Some kids rolled their eyes, but others, the ones who were ready to hear it, really listened. One boy, Daniel, reminded Ryan so much of himself that it was almost painful. Rich parents, expensive car, treated everyone badly. He came to the workshop because he was on his last warning before expulsion. He sat in the back with his arms crossed, his face set in a permanent sneer. Ryan didn't push him. He just told his story week after week and let Daniel sit with it. Then one day, Daniel stayed after everyone else had left. "My dad doesn't care," Daniel said suddenly. "He just throws money at me and expects me to be grateful. My mom left when I was 10. Nobody actually cares what I do as long as I don't embarrass them." "I hear you," Ryan said. "And that's really hard. But you know what I learned? Hurt people hurt people. When we're in pain, when we feel ignored or unloved, sometimes we lash out at everyone around us. We make them feel the pain we're feeling, but it doesn't actually help. It just spreads the hurt around." Daniel looked at him, and for the first time the sneer was gone. "So what do you do instead?" "You break the cycle," Ryan said. "You acknowledge the pain instead of pretending it doesn't exist. You get help, like therapy. You find people who actually care, even if they're not who you expected, and you choose to be better than what was done to you, not because it's easy, but because staying in that angry place is actually harder in the long run." Daniel started coming to the workshops regularly after that. He didn't transform overnight, but Ryan could see small changes. The way he spoke to the cafeteria staff got a little softer. The way he treated other students got a little kinder. It was progress. Meanwhile, Ryan's work with the David Morrison Memorial Scholarship was gaining momentum. He and his father had set up a proper foundation, and they were reviewing applications for the first round of scholarships. Reading the stories of these military families, their struggles and their resilience moved Ryan deeply. One application in particular caught his attention. A young woman named Sophie, whose father had been killed in the same incident as David. She wanted to study social work to help other veterans and their families. Her essay was beautifully written, full of determination and compassion despite her loss. Ryan called James immediately. "I think I found someone David would have wanted us to help," he said, and read Sophie's application over the phone. James was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. David knew her dad. They were good friends. 6 months had passed since that night at the Azure Room. 6 months of hard work, of daily choices to be better, of falling down sometimes and getting back up. 6 months of rebuilding, healing, and growing. And tonight, Ryan had arranged something special. It was his mother's birthday again. A second chance to do what he'd ruined so spectacularly half a year ago. Ryan had spent weeks planning this evening, wanting it to be perfect. Not perfect in the expensive, showy way his old self would have understood, but perfect in meaning, in thoughtfulness, in love. He had made a reservation at the Azure Room, of course. It felt right to return to the place where everything changed. James had helped him coordinate with the staff to arrange a special table, the same one where his family had sat that fateful night. The whole family arrived together this time, all 4 of them in the same car. Ryan had insisted on picking everyone up so they could arrive as a unit. As they walked into the restaurant, Ryan felt a flutter of nerves. So much had happened here. So much had changed. James was there at his usual post, and when he saw the family, his face broke into that warm smile that Ryan had come to love. The security guard stepped forward and embraced Ryan like a son. "Look at you," James said, holding him at arm's length to really look at him. "Every time I see you, you look more at peace." "I am," Ryan said honestly. "Thanks to you." James greeted the rest of the family warmly, and Ryan's mother hugged him tightly. "Thank you for saving my son," she whispered. "He saved himself," James replied. "I just gave him a little push in the right direction." The host led them to their table, and Ryan pulled out his mother's chair for her. Something so simple, but something the old Ryan never would have done. Kate sat down with a smile, and his father squeezed Ryan's shoulder as he passed. The evening was everything the last one wasn't. Conversation flowed easily, naturally. Ryan had his phone in his pocket, turned completely off. He was present, fully engaged, laughing at his father's jokes and asking Kate about her college applications. He listened when his mother talked about her charity work and actually contributed ideas. When the waiter came, Ryan recognized him. It was Tom, the young man he had apologized to months ago. Tom's eyes widened slightly when he saw Ryan, but then he smiled, a real smile. "Good evening," Tom said professionally. "Welcome back." "Hi, Tom," Ryan said warmly. "It's good to see you. How have you been?" They chatted for a moment, and Tom mentioned he'd been promoted to head waiter. Ryan congratulated him genuinely, and when Tom left to put in their order, his mother looked at Ryan with questions in her eyes. "I was horrible to him," Ryan explained quietly. "That night 6 months ago. I apologized to him later, but I'm glad to see he's doing well." His mother reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "I'm proud of who you've become," she said softly. The meal was wonderful. Not because the food was particularly different than it had been 6 months ago, but because they were together. Really together. They shared dishes, told stories, and made plans for an upcoming family vacation. It was the kind of dinner Ryan had denied them for so long, the kind he hadn't even realized he was missing. Halfway through the meal, Ryan excused himself and walked over to where James stood. "Can you come over for a minute?" he asked. "There's something I want to do." James followed him back to the table, and the family looked up curiously. Ryan's father, who had been in on the surprise, smiled knowingly. "Mom," Ryan began, his voice a little shaky with emotion. "6 months ago I ruined your 50th birthday. I was selfish, cruel, and I took you completely for granted. I can't get that night back, and I can't undo the hurt I caused. But I wanted to make tonight special, to show you how much you mean to me." He pulled out an envelope and handed it to her. "This isn't a material gift. It's something bigger." His mother opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a certificate and a letter. As she read, tears began streaming down her face. "What is it?" Kate asked, trying to see. "Ryan has made a donation to the Veterans Organization in my name," his mother said, her voice choked with emotion, "to expand their family support services. He's also volunteering to lead a support group for families of veterans." "But that's not all," Ryan said, glancing at James. "I also wanted to introduce you properly to someone very important. Mom, Dad, Kate, this is James. More than just the security guard here at the restaurant. He's become a mentor, a friend, and honestly, someone who saved my life." James shifted uncomfortably, never one to take credit, but Ryan's father stood and shook his hand firmly. "We can never thank you enough for what you did for our son, for our family." "I just told him the truth," James said simply. "He did the hard work of listening. Will you join us for dessert?" Ryan's mother asked, gesturing to an empty chair they'd had the restaurant add to their table. "Please, I'd love to get to know the man who brought my son back to me." James looked at the restaurant manager, who nodded approvingly. It was a quiet night, and this was clearly important, so James sat down with the family. And over dessert, he told them more about David, about his service, about the scholarship that now bore his name. Kate was fascinated, asking questions about David's interests, his personality. Ryan's father wanted to know more about the scholarship recipients and how they were doing. Ryan's mother just kept crying happy tears, grateful to this stranger who had cared enough about her son to intervene. 23 students so far, Ryan said proudly when asked about the scholarship. "Sophie, the first recipient, is top of her class. She sends me updates about her social work program, and 3 more students will get scholarships next semester." "David would have loved this," James said quietly, looking at Ryan. "He always believed people could change, could be better. You proved him right." As the evening wound down, other diners in the restaurant approached their table. Some recognized Ryan from that night 6 months ago. Others had heard the story from staff or seen the local news coverage of the scholarship fund. They wanted to congratulate him, to tell him their own stories of second chances and transformation. One older woman touched Ryan's shoulder gently. "My grandson is a lot like you were," she said. "Spoiled, entitled, pushing everyone away. Can I give him your contact information? Maybe hearing your story directly would help?" Ryan didn't hesitate. "Of course. I'd be happy to talk with him." He gave her his number, and as she walked away, he realized this was his purpose now. Not just living his own second chance, but helping others find theirs. The workshops at schools were expanding to 3 different locations. He was being asked to speak at youth centers and community organizations. His story was reaching people, and some of them were changing because of it. Before they left the restaurant, Ryan asked the manager if he could address the staff. The manager agreed, curious, and gathered the waiters, hosts, and kitchen staff. Ryan stood in front of them, feeling vulnerable but determined. 6 months ago, I was the worst customer you could imagine. I was rude, demanding, and treated you all like you were beneath me. Some of you were working that night, and you witnessed my behavior. I want to apologize to all of you, not just for that night, but for every time I came here before and acted like my money made me better than you. The staff looked surprised. Some moved, some still skeptical. Tom stepped forward. I was there that night, he said to his coworkers, and I can tell you this apology is real. Ryan came and found me weeks later, apologized personally, and has been different every time I've seen him since. People can change if they really want to. The staff applauded softly, and several came forward to shake Ryan's hand or tell him they appreciated the apology. It felt good, this process of making amends, of owning his past while building a better future. As the family prepared to leave, Ryan's father pulled him aside. I need to tell you something, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I failed you as a father. I gave you things instead of boundaries, money instead of time. I let you become someone neither of us liked, and I'm sorry for that. Dad, Ryan started, but his father held up a hand. Let me finish. Watching you transform these past 6 months has been the proudest time of my life. Not because you're successful or because you're doing good things, though you are, but because you faced yourself honestly and chose to be better. That takes real courage. The kind I'm not sure I would have had at your age. You've inspired me to be a better father, a better man. Thank you for that. They hugged, really hugged, and Ryan couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this close to his father. Maybe never. Maybe they were building something new, something better than what they'd had before. Outside the restaurant, the family gathered for a moment before heading to the car. The city lights sparkled around them, and the air was cool and pleasant. Ryan's mother stood in the center, and her 3 favorite people circled around her. This has been the perfect birthday, she said, looking at each of them. Not because of where we went or what we ate, but because we were together. Really together. My family whole again. I love you, Mom, Ryan said. I'm sorry it took me so long to show it properly. I love you too, sweetheart. And I'm just glad you found your way back to us. Kate linked her arm through Ryan's. Hey, can we keep the Friday movie nights going? I've actually started looking forward to them. Absolutely, Ryan replied.